So Ara Oshagan and Scout Tufankjian are photographers, as is Sargis Bulghadaryan, who is out there photographing. It is the work of these three photographers that Narineh Mirzaeian, architect and curator, took and developed into the photo exhibition that is outside to the left of the stage, the music stage, if you were musicians, to the left of the music stage. So if you're on the stage, it's stage left, right? Something like that. But please do go take a look, because it's quite unusual and untraditional. Of their whole body of work, Narineh selected just a few photographs and entitled the exhibition, Some of Us. Not S-O-M-E, but S-U-M. And so we're going to talk about that and about Narineh's perception, but I want to say a couple of more things. You know Scout Tufankjian as President Obama's photographer, as also the photographer who did this massive diaspora photography project over the last 2 years.
6 years.
6 years.
I'm a crazy person.
Seemed like 2 years.
Yeah, it seemed like 10 years.
Okay, those 2 years, those 6 years. And did what many photographers do in silos, geographic silos, and she kind of put it all together. Ara Oshagan, who in daytime hours is a physicist, and the rest of the time he's a photographer, has photographed Los Angeles, and also Armenia and Qarabağ, but Los Angeles in ways that most people don't. The gangs, the prisons, that other Los Angeles that we somehow don't recognize as Shade, don't interact with sometimes, or deal with, and so they're unusual photographers, and Sargis Bulghadaryan is from Yerevan, lives in Yerevan, does photojournalism, but also is an amazing photographer. So Narineh took those bodies of works and created the Some of Us. Was it hard? And this question will go to all of you at the end of Narineh's answer, is how does one photograph identity? I mean, how do you catch a soul? How do you capture a soul on camera? So Narineh, was your task difficult or easy?
Difficult. Yeah, it's an immensely difficult task, and I think I had to approach it thinking that this is just a snapshot and it's a pop-up exhibit, and I get actually the kind of fleeting, sort of the fleeting spirit of the event made it a little bit easier, because if you want to do an exhibit like this that's comprehensive, sort of encapsulating the kind of nuances and depths of an issue like global identity of particular people, but then taking the work of 3 people that have invested a lot of time, producing that work, that could take years. It could literally take years, and it would for any sort of reputable gallery or museum. And so for us, I think it was just the kind of, it's a pop-up exhibit. Let's take the work of these 3 photographers from a particular series and just try and frame it in a way that is reflective of how I think some of us are starting to grapple with the global Armenian identity, but also I'm sure a lot of us have grappled with our own personal identities over the course of our lives, piecing things together and always in flux and redefining. So yes, it was very difficult, but the kind of pop-upness of it made it a little bit less of a kind of daunting task.
I'm sure it was difficult, and when you look, if you haven't, please do make a point, of the way you juxtapose these images is really interesting. Scout, how do you capture identity?
Well, I don't think I set myself that as a specific goal. I mean, for my project, which the images in this show are taken from, what I was trying to do, so to kind of build a little bit about what Shushan was saying about Armenian language being in a box, when I was a kid, it felt like Armenian identity was this very small box that you had to fit in perfectly in order to kind of belong to the club. You had to have 2 Armenian parents, speak Armenian, go to Armenian school, belong to one of the organizations, and marry an Armenian of the opposite gender and have a socially acceptable career like lawyer or doctor or scientist.
Engineer. Engineer is good.
Or engineer, exactly. And so for a lot of us, probably a lot of us in this room, we don't fit in that box. And at the same time, we're still a part of the community, and we're still a part of the global Armenian community. So what I wanted to do, first of all, was to not only look at the Armenian story as a story of survival and look at the Armenian story as this incredible kind of global survival story, but also look at kind of a big tent school of Armenian identity. So I wasn't trying to capture Armenianness in a frame. I was trying to show the kind of diversity of the Armenian human experience across the world. So that's a little bit easier.
Well, I think it opens up identity in a
No,
manageable
absolutely.
way.
But in a way that I find kind of more interesting and more, I'm not capable of capturing, I don't know if anyone is capable of capturing the breadth of the Armenian experience in one frame of photography. It seems like it's impossible. We're too diverse. We're too spread out.
That's why it takes a big book that you made, right?
I mean, yes. People kept
Lots
asking
of
me,
pictures.
What is the thread that ties the Armenian community together? And I'm like, I answered it in the pictures. Please don't make me do it in words.
Can you capture identity in a picture?
Well, of course not. I don't think you can capture identity, but what you can try to do, and is what I've done, I think I've tried to do, is to reflect upon it. Reflect in some way in your own experience and in your own community. So that's how I started. If I can contrast, so Scout kind of went global. She went vertical. She went horizontal, and I sort of took one place, and I went vertical in that sense. And so what I try to do is find that dimension in which my identity, my community's identity, would be reflected in the pictures that I made of my community. And so, as you said, it was very important for me to photograph not just the church, the schools, all these things, families, which I did a lot of, but also gangs and motorcycle gangs, alternative lifestyles. I found out in Palmdale, for a while there was a rehab center for Armenian drug addicts, so I photographed there. So defining an identity in a broader way than just the box that's been mentioned a number of times, the school, church, and this and that.
Can I ask you, did you get complaints? Because I got complaints.
You get, what kind of this is not us.
There is no such thing as a gay Armenian. I got complaints. Gay Armenians, these kids in this picture, they do not look like good Armenian children. There's too many poor people.
So what were the complaints? Okay, gay Armenians. Yeah. Okay, there are no gay Armenians.
Right?
There are no gangsters.
No gangs. No kind of like punks. Armenians are successful and wealthy. There are no poor Armenians, especially in cities.
And I mean, we do the kind of photography we do is really in the street, right? So we go out in the street and we don't try to find the rich and the famous. It's like, I don't know, it doesn't interest me at all. And so I've had that feedback, that sort of pushback where, where are the rich Armenians? Where are the famous Armenians?
I actually did I deliberately did not do famous Armenians because then that's a totally different project. I wanted to do kind of normal Armenians, but I did actually look for rich Armenians, and there are some in the book.
Narineh, did you look for a picture you wish you had that would have completed something and you didn't find it?
No, I actually, I found myself, it was really difficult to eliminate images, and I really had no interest in showing the conventional images that, first of all, I don't think that they have the conventional images, like sort of the iconic images that we're shown and sort of we see as the kind of touristic, picture-perfect ideal of who we are and who we're supposed to be. They're not there, and I'm really happy that I didn't have to kind of exclude that.
We're happy.
But I had no interest in doing that. My interest personally was to look at these images and try and find the most diverse, try to stretch the spectrum as far as I could possibly stretch it, and yet every image that's in there I can personally relate to. I don't necessarily have an experience that like the people that were documented do, but I can relate to in some way or another.
So what I think is very interesting in Narineh's installation of our work is, and we talked about this a number of years ago, so she's got this idea of the lenticular idea, where as you walk past these panels, the images change. And so you can look at the shifting images, and sometimes the images from two different photographs in the strips relate to each other, or maybe not. But then you can stand at a sweet spot, and you can kind of get everything in focus. And so what's really interesting to me and reflects my work is that our identity is really in flux. It's constantly changing. A lot of the pictures I take, there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of layers, a lot of things. And so that kind of ambiguity is inherent in the installation that she made, and I really appreciate that. As you walk, things change, just like our identity. Every minute, I feel like our identity is changing, coming back, going forward, and changing constantly.
Which is kind of a continuation of what Hagop was saying, huh? That it's creating and then sharing. The photo that I found most interesting that you used was the family photo that turns out to be, of course, the Metz Bazar, some of the Metz Bazar kids.
It's Vaughn's rehearsal dinner, basically.
But it was a family photo. I mean, I hope that we're all fortunate enough to have one of those photos.
Well, and it's an Armenian family photo in that the father is from Bolis, the mother is from America, they live in Paris, there are friends from Istanbul, there are family from the United States, there's another sister from London, so it's it's the web of the global Armenian family encompassed in one family.
But you chose to exhibit a picture that I think we must all have in our tarags somewhere, or albums or something. That's what I thought was interesting, that it's all of us.
Yeah, I think that there's, even if you don't have, one of those images in your darak or in your kind of personal stash, I think there's an element of humanism in all of them that I think we can relate to. Like there's people in those photographs that, you can potentially be related to. They look like you could be related to. I mean, I guess that's what I found really interesting, and also the juxtaposition of like that family photograph juxtaposed to the sort of pool photograph that Ara shot, which is a very LA version of the kind of family gathering. I think that the work, it was really surprising to me. I would have never chosen traces from Ara and then put it together with Scout's diaspora project. But really, when I found myself looking at the books going back and forth, there's so much of a thread between them. And so that was something that that was really fun to kind of try and couple and try and riff off of each other.
Did either of you want to take a picture that you were unable to take, that somebody didn't want you to take, or just...
I mean, always. Yeah. I mean, there's always, I'm constantly haunted by the images that I missed. The pictures I took, I'm not super interested in, but the ones that I missed, I see them when I close my eyes, and it turns me into a crazy person.
But you missed them because I didn't agree or share with the idea that this image is worth it, so, go away?
I mean, look, in a situation like this project, I'm not taking photographs of people who don't want to be photographed. This is not a perp walk. This is not a police violence situation. This isn't a conflict. This is people who are welcoming me into their homes, and I am incredibly grateful and respectful of that. None of them are set up. None of them are ones that they asked me to take. But as a general rule, in that situation, I try not to be a dick, basically.
Ara, your situation's different.
Well, it's kind of the curse of the photographer that you miss pictures all the time, right?
Yeah.
Even when you take a picture, you feel like you missed that one
Absolutely.
that was going to really
Well, it's the curse of an SLR camera.
Bring those elements together, right?
Super techie, but if you shoot with an SLR camera, you never actually see the picture that you take because the shutter closes in that moment when you've gotten the picture. And one of the reasons I shoot with a rangefinder is you actually see the picture that you take.
Yeah, so that's a constant issue. And to me, in my project, because it was so personal, I mean, a lot of the photographs, for instance, of the family that I photographed are my wife's family, big extended. The immediate family gets together, it's 50 people. And I was, obviously, it was part of, so my kids are in my photographs. So it is very much me seeing myself, seeing my community, seeing the different types of identities that happen. So there are no pictures that, there are situations where it's difficult to take a photograph, like in a funeral or something of that sort, where you are you feel like you're encroaching upon a certain space that you shouldn't be. So those situations happen all the time. But in terms of the people accepting me into their midst to take photographs, no.
Yeah, I would say 95% of my job is not photography. It is talking my way into situations where I can access the photographs. Right. And making people, once I'm there, making them feel comfortable enough to relax and kind of forget that I'm there as much as possible. And that's most of what I do. It's most of where the effort goes.
Yeah, so it's perhaps a little more difficult for Scout because she travels to, say, I don't know, Bangladesh or Tokyo or whatever, and to meet people right away and be accepted. While for me, it was a different process because I intimately knew the people I was photographing most of the time, and I would photograph them over and over again over a long period of time. And so you get a different type of photograph, even though they're connected, like Narineh is saying, but you really get a different type of texture in the way it's seen and the way it's composed.
Narineh, when Scout and I first started to talk about this possible exhibition, this is, I don't know, 7, 8 months ago, Scout suggested the following, which to me sounded awfully difficult to do. And we didn't have time and we didn't do it. Now, I'm asking you as the other end, the curator, the editor. Scout's idea was, let's assign this to students and say, you're going home, Christmas vacation. Come back with photos that represent identity. Is that doable? Could we do it?
Yeah,
There's a whole lot of students here. We can do something.
I think we could do that. I think that would have been incredible.
I wanted to teach a workshop.
I think that would have been incredible, and I think
next year.
There's a similar project that one of our friends, Eric Grigorian, has done with Tumo, where he's with kids, and I think that would have been great, just a lot longer, and probably a really interesting kind of lens to look through because it would have been through the perspective of, say, 20 people instead of, say 2 people, and also the perspective of let's say young people at a different point in their lives when they're grappling with identity in a different way than adults or people who think they're adults like us.
And that would have been innovative because that has not been done.
Next year.
Hang in there.
Especially in diaspora.
I'm pushing pretty hard for this, guys.
But not in the diaspora. It would be very interesting to me to see that.
Well, I think it's something that we can do because one of the things that I hope comes out of an event like this is that we talk about all of the things we take for granted. I think it's a perfectly fine thing if a 20-year-old does not talk about what is and isn't my identity. That's fine. I think you are who you are, live it, and move on. But because it does become a question for some people, that it's worth talking about it and saying, okay, this is the picture I took because. And when you get to that because, already it's a fascinating discussion that tries to take that little box of Shushans or the shrine of Hagops and open it up. So stay tuned. More innovative to come. Thank you, Scout. Thank you, Narineh. Thank you, Ara.
Let's go dance? Do we go dance now?
Yeah, we can go dance now. Scout,
you can't sing,
the edge
Scout.
of our seat. Thank you for being here. That ends this part of the program. I want to thank Alex Sardar hugely for
He's amazing.
What very few people can do, and that is hold it together and do all of the wise input things that he does. Thank you, Alex. Thank you to all of you. I know it's been a long day. I'm glad you're all here. Would you like the mic back, or would you like to go dance? Let's go dance. Okay. Thank you all. Collective
Thank you, Salpi.